Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our English podcast channel, Power of Listening. My name is Jack, and I'm very happy you're here today. If you are learning English and you want to speak simple, real English, this podcast is for you. Today, I want to share about the life story of Jack Ma. Before we start, please like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and share it with a friend who's learning English. Good job for being here. Now relax, sit comfortably, and let's start. Chapter 1. The Humble Beginnings. The Boy from Hangzhou. 1.1. Against All Odds. Every giant was once a child, and every great empire started with a small dream. In 1964, China was a very different place. It was not the economic superpower we see today in 2026. In a small, traditional house in Hangzhou, a baby boy named Ma Yun was born. The world would later know him as Jack Ma. He was not born into wealth. His family lived a very simple life. His parents were performers of pingtan, a traditional Chinese musical storytelling art. Growing up, Jack was surrounded by stories of heroes, struggles, and perseverance. Perhaps this is where he learned the art of communication that would one day convince investors to give him millions of dollars. 1.2. The Small Boy with a Big Heart. Jack was a very thin child. In school, he was often teased because of his size. However, he had a spirit that was much larger than his body. He was never afraid to stand up for himself. He often got into fights with boys who were much bigger and stronger than him. Later in life, Jack famously said, "I never feared opponents who were bigger than me." This bravery was a sign of the entrepreneur he would become, someone who wasn't afraid to challenge global giants like eBay or Google. 1.3. The Turning Point. Discovering English. In 1972, something happened that changed Jack's life forever. The American president, Richard Nixon, visited Hangzhou. Suddenly, Hangzhou became a tourist destination. Young Jack was fascinated by the foreigners. He realized that to understand the world, he needed to learn their language, English. At the age of 12, Jack made a decision that showed his incredible determination. For 9 years, every single morning, whether it was raining or snowing, Jack woke up at 5 a.m. He would ride his bicycle for 40 minutes to the main city hotel. 1.4. The Free Tour Guide. Jack would wait outside the hotel for foreign tourists. He offered them free tours of the city as their guide. He didn't want tips. He didn't want money. All he wanted was for them to speak English with him. Through these conversations, Jack learned more than just grammar. He learned about the Western way of thinking. He realized that what he read in Chinese textbooks was sometimes very different from what the tourists told him about the world. This made him a global thinker at a very young age. 1.5. How he became Jack. It was during these years that he met a family from Australia. He became pen pals with a boy named David Morley. Because Ma Yun was difficult for foreigners to pronounce, one of the tourists told him, "I will call you Jack." That name stuck with him forever. The Morley family later invited him to Australia. That trip was a mind-opening experience for him. He saw a world of prosperity and technology that he had never imagined in China. He returned home with a new vision. He wanted to do something big for his country. Chapter 2. The Boy Who Wanted to Learn. The School of Hard Knocks. 2.1. The Academic Struggles. If you ever think that you are not smart enough because of your grades, you must listen to this part of Jack Ma's life. Jack was not a star student. In fact, he struggled with almost every major exam. He failed his primary school graduation exams twice. He failed his middle school exams 3 times. But Jack didn't see these as failures. He saw them as tests of his patience. He often said that he wasn't good at mathematics, but he was excellent at dreaming and communicating. His struggles in school taught him a vital lesson. Your grades do not define your future. Your character does. 2.2. The University Entrance Exam. When it came time for university, the situation became even harder. The Gaokao, or the National College Entrance Exam in China, is known for being incredibly difficult. Jack Ma failed this exam 2 times. The first time he took the exam, he scored only 1 out of 120 in the math section. Most people would have given up, but not Jack. He studied harder and took it a 3rd time. Finally, he was accepted into the Hangzhou Teachers Institute. It wasn't the top university in China, but for Jack, it was a huge victory. He graduated in 1988 and became an English teacher. 2.3. The Job Market. 30 Rejections. After graduating, Jack thought his struggles were over, but the real world was even tougher. He applied for 30 different jobs and was rejected by every single one. He once told a story about applying for a job in the police force. 5 people applied, 4 were accepted. Jack was the only one rejected. The most famous story is about KFC. When the fast food giant came to Hangzhou, 24 people applied for the job. 23 were hired. Can you guess who was the only one rejected? Yes, it was Jack Ma. Even the manager told him he wasn't good enough. But Jack kept his head high. He believed that today is hard, tomorrow will be harder, but the day after tomorrow will be beautiful. 2.4. Life as a Teacher, $12 a month. Eventually, Jack started teaching English at a local university. He was a natural teacher. He didn't just teach grammar, he taught his students how to be passionate and how to think differently. Even though he loved teaching, he was very poor. He earned only $12 a month. Imagine that. One of the future richest men in the world was living on $12 a month. This period of his life was essential because it taught him how to survive with very little. It gave him the hunger to create something bigger for himself and his students. 2.5. The First Business Venture, Hope Translation. In 1994, Jack started his first real business, the Hangzhou Hope Translation Agency. He saw that many local businesses needed help communicating with the outside world. To pay the rent for the office, he sold flowers, clothes, and gifts on the street. He was an English teacher by day and a street salesman by night. This was the moment Jack transitioned from a dreamer to a doer. He realized that a business isn't just about an idea, it's about the hard work you put in when nobody is watching. Chapter 3. A History of Rejections. The Power of No. 3.1. The Man Who Was Never Good Enough. We often see the glory of a billionaire, but we rarely see the mountain of rejections they had to climb. Jack Ma is the king of rejections. In this chapter, we will explore the many times the world told him no, and how he used those rejections as fuel to keep moving forward. Jack often says that if you want to be successful, you must get used to being rejected. It is not a sign of failure, it is a part of the process. 3.2. The Harvard Heartbreak. After Jack started his career as a teacher, he had a dream of studying at one of the best universities in the world, Harvard. He didn't just apply once, he applied to Harvard University 10 times, and all 10 times he was rejected. Imagine the mental strength it takes to apply to the same place 10 times after being told no 9 times before. Jack says he told himself, maybe someday I should go there to teach. He never let the rejection make him feel small. Instead, he made his dreams even bigger. 3.3 The KFC Story, 23 out of 24. One of the most famous stories in the business world happened when the American fast food chain KFC opened its first branch in Hangzhou. Many people in the city were looking for jobs. Jack Ma was one of them. 24 people went for the interview. After the process was over, 23 people were hired. Jack Ma was the only one who was rejected. The managers thought he wasn't handsome enough or tall enough for the job. While the other 23 people started their new jobs, Jack went home empty-handed. But he didn't cry. He simply thought, okay, this is not the path for me. 3.4 The police force rejection. It wasn't just KFC. Jack also tried to join the police force. He wanted to serve his community. 5 people from his neighborhood applied for the job. After the physical and mental tests, 4 of them were accepted. Again, Jack was the only one rejected. The officers told him, "You are not good enough." This happened over and over again. Whether it was a waiter's job at a 4-star hotel or a low-level government job, Jack was constantly told he didn't have what it takes. But these rejections taught him a secret. The world's opinion of you is not your reality. 3.5 Dealing with the pain of no. How did Jack Ma survive so much rejection? He once said in an interview that at first it was very painful. He felt lonely and sad. But then he realized that failure is a fertilizer. Just like plants need waste to grow, a human soul needs failure to become strong. He stopped looking for approval from others and started believing in his own vision. He realized that if the traditional doors were closed for him, he had to build his own door. This mindset is what led him to the next big step in his life, the discovery of the Internet. 3.6 The lesson for 2026. In today's fast world, many young people give up after 1 or 2 failures. Jack Ma's history of rejections is a message to all of us. He was rejected by the police, rejected by KFC, and rejected by Harvard. If he had been accepted by any of them, he might have spent his life as a police officer or a manager at a fast food shop. He would never have built Alibaba. Sometimes when you think you are being rejected, you are actually being redirected towards something much better. Chapter 4 The Discovery of the Internet, 1995. The Spark. 4.1 A Trip to the United States. In early 1995, Jack Ma had a small translation business. A local government office asked him to go to the United States to help resolve a business dispute. This trip was the turning point of his life. He arrived in Seattle, and while staying with a friend, he saw something he had never seen before in China: a personal computer connected to the Internet. 4.2 The First Search. Beer. Jack's friend, who was an early tech enthusiast, said, "Jack, this is the Internet. You can find anything here." Jack was afraid to touch the computer at first. He said, "Computers are very expensive in China. If I break it, I can't pay for it." But his friend encouraged him to try. The first word Jack typed into the search engine was beer. He saw results for American beer, German beer, and Japanese beer. But there was not a single result for Chinese beer. Curious, he then typed China. The screen showed no data. There were no results about China, its culture, or its products on the entire World Wide Web. At that moment, Jack didn't see a problem. He saw a massive opportunity. He realized that China needed to be on the map of this new digital world. 4.3 The Birth of China Pages. Jack returned to Hangzhou with a burning passion. He borrowed $2,000 from his family and friends to start his first internet company, China Pages. You must remember, in 1995, most people in China had never heard of the internet. When Jack told his friends he wanted to put Chinese businesses on a computer screen, they thought he was crazy. They asked, "How can a business exist inside a box?" Jack spent hours explaining it, but nobody understood. Still, he didn't stop. He worked from his apartment using a very slow dial-up connection that took hours to load a single page. 4.4. The Struggle of a Pioneer. The early days of China Pages were extremely difficult. To get clients, Jack had to go to hotels and businesses, telling them he could put their information on the internet. Since nobody could see the internet in China yet, he had to take screenshots of the websites he made, print them out on paper, and show them to his clients. Many people called him a con man or a liar. They thought he was trying to steal their money for something that didn't exist. But Jack remained patient. He knew that the internet was like a giant wave coming toward the world, and he wanted China to be ready to ride that wave. 4.5. Failure is a stepping stone. Despite his hard work, China Pages eventually failed. A government-owned company became a partner and took control of the business. Jack felt he could no longer lead the company with his vision, so he walked away. But he didn't leave empty-handed. He left with something more valuable than money: experience. He had learned how the internet worked, how to talk to business owners, and most importantly, he realized that a company needs the right team to survive. This failure was the final lesson he needed before he was ready to create the giant we know as Alibaba. Chapter 5. The Birth of Alibaba. 1999. The Apartment Meeting. After the failure of China Pages, Jack Ma didn't give up. He spent some time working for a government ministry in Beijing, but his heart was still in Hangzhou. In early 1999, he invited 17 of his friends and former students to his small second-floor apartment. These 18 people are now known in the business world as the 18 Apostles. Jack spoke to them for hours. He didn't have a fancy office or a lot of money, but he had a vision that could light up the room. He told them, "We are going to build a global website for small businesses. We will compete with the giants of Silicon Valley." 5.2. Why the name Alibaba? Jack wanted a name that was global and easy to remember. One day, while he was in a coffee shop in San Francisco, he asked a waitress, "Do you know Alibaba?" She said, "Yes, open sesame." Jack then went out and asked 30 other people from different countries. Everyone knew the story of Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. Jack chose this name because Alibaba was a kind, smart business person who helped his village. Also, the phrase "open sesame" symbolized opening the door for small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, to find treasures in the global market. Plus, it starts with the letter A, so it would always appear at the top of any list. 5.3. Working in the Hupan Garden apartment. For the first few months, the apartment, located in Hupan Garden, was their office, their kitchen, and their bedroom. They worked 16 to 18 hours a day. Jack told his team, "If we go to work at 8 a.m. and go home at 5 p.m., this is not a tech company, and we will fail." They had very little money. Sometimes they didn't even have enough to pay for a taxi, so they walked everywhere. Jack's wife, Kathy Zhang, was one of the founders. She cooked meals for everyone and handled the logistics. They were not just a team, they were a family fighting against the odds.
5.4. The mission: to make business easy. At that time, big companies had all the power. They could afford to travel to international trade fairs to sell their products. But small factories in China were invisible to the world. Alibaba's mission was simple: to make it easy to do business anywhere. Jack wanted to create an online platform where a small shoe factory in China could sell to a shopkeeper in New York with one click. This was a revolutionary idea in 1999, especially since most people in China still didn't have personal computers.
5.5. Finding the first investment. Even with all their passion, Alibaba needed money to grow. Jack traveled to Silicon Valley to find investors, but many people rejected him again. They thought his business model, not charging users anything, was crazy. Finally, in late 1999, Jack met Goldman Sachs and later Masayoshi Son, the CEO of SoftBank. Masayoshi Son was so impressed by Jack's crazy eyes and his passion that after talking for only 6 minutes, he decided to invest $20 million. This investment changed everything. It gave Alibaba the fuel it needed to survive the dot-com bubble and start its journey toward becoming a global giant. Chapter 6. Facing the Giants, the Shark and the Crocodile. 6.1. The Arrival of the Giant, eBay. In 2003, the American e-commerce giant eBay arrived in China. At that time, eBay was the most powerful online marketplace in the world. They bought a local Chinese company called EachNet and controlled 80% of the Chinese market. Everyone thought Alibaba would be crushed. People said it was like a small mouse trying to fight an elephant. But Jack Ma had a different plan. 6.2. The Secret Project, Taobao. Jack Ma knew that if he didn't act, eBay would eventually take over everything. In secret, he gathered a small team of engineers and took them back to the same apartment where Alibaba began. He told them to build a new website in just 1 month. This website was called Taobao, which means searching for treasure. When Taobao was launched, Jack made a bold and risky decision. It would be free. For 3 years, sellers could list their products without paying a single cent. eBay, on the other hand, charged fees for every listing. Jack said, "We want to help small businesses grow first. We will think about money later." 6.3. The Crocodile in the Yangtze. The battle between eBay and Taobao is a classic lesson in business strategy. eBay treated the Chinese market exactly like the American market. They used the same rules and the same design. But Jack Ma understood the Chinese people. He knew they loved to haggle and chat before buying. Jack famously described the fight with this metaphor: eBay may be a shark in the ocean, but I am a crocodile in the Yangtze River. If we fight in the ocean, I lose, but if we fight in the river, the crocodile wins. He meant that on his home ground, understanding local culture was more important than having billions of dollars. 6.4. Innovations that changed the game. Taobao introduced 2 things that eBay didn't have: Wang, an instant messaging tool that allowed buyers and sellers to talk to each other in real time, This built trust, which is very important in Chinese culture. Alipay. At that time, many Chinese people didn't trust online payments or use credit cards. Jack created Alipay as an escrow service. The money would only be released to the seller after the buyer confirmed they were happy with the product. This solved the problem of trust overnight. 6.5. The Retreat of the Shark. eBay laughed at Jack Ma's free model. They spent $100 million on advertising to stop Taobao, but they couldn't win the hearts of the Chinese people. Taobao's market share grew from 0% to 70% in just 2 years. By 2006, eBay admitted defeat and officially left the Chinese market. Jack Ma had done the impossible. A former English teacher had defeated the most powerful tech company in Silicon Valley. This victory proved that having the most money doesn't make you the winner. Having the best understanding of your customers does. Chapter 7. The IPO and Global Success. Shaking the World. 7.1. The Road to New York. After defeating eBay, Alibaba became the undisputed king of e-commerce in China. But Jack Ma wanted more than just local success. He wanted to show the world the power of Chinese innovation. In September 2014, Alibaba Group decided to go public on the New York Stock Exchange. This was not just a business deal. It was a historic moment for the entire global economy. 7.2. The biggest IPO in history. On September 19, 2014, the world watched as Jack Ma stood on the floor of the stock exchange. Alibaba raised $25 billion, making it the largest IPO in history at that time. It was bigger than the IPOs of Google, Facebook, and Twitter combined. But Jack did something very special that day. Usually, the founders of a company ring the opening bell. Instead, Jack chose 8 Alibaba customers, including a farmer, a courier, and an entrepreneur to ring the bell. He wanted to show that Alibaba's success belonged to the small businesses and regular people who used its platform. Jack Ma becoming a billionaire. Almost overnight, Jack Ma became the richest man in China. The English teacher who once earned only $12 a month was now worth billions of dollars. But when reporters asked him how it felt to be so rich, Jack gave a surprising answer. He said, "The happiest time of my life was when I was earning $12 a month. Having a lot of money is a great responsibility. It is not my money, it is the trust the world has put in me." 7.4. The global expansion. With billions of dollars in the bank, Alibaba expanded into every corner of technology. AliExpress. They launched AliExpress to allow people from Russia, Brazil, and the USA to buy directly from Chinese factories. Cloud computing. They built Alibaba Cloud, competing with Amazon Web Services. Entertainment. They invested in movies and sports, even helping to produce some Hollywood blockbusters. Jack Ma traveled the world like a rock star. He met with presidents, kings, and top business leaders. He was no longer just a Chinese businessman. He had become a global icon of the Internet age. 7.5. Singles Day, a global phenomenon. One of Jack Ma's greatest successes was turning a small Chinese tradition into a global shopping festival. Singles Day, November 11th, was originally a day for single people to celebrate. Jack turned it into the world's biggest 24-hour online shopping event. In a single day, Alibaba would process tens of billions of dollars in sales, far more than Black Friday and Cyber Monday in the United States. It was a massive display of logistics, technology, and the incredible spending power of the Chinese consumer. Chapter 8: Retirement and Legacy: The Return of the Teacher. 8.1: The Surprising Announcement. In 2018, at the age of 54, Jack Ma did something that very few powerful leaders ever do. He announced that he would step down as the chairman of Alibaba. The world was shocked. Why would a man at the height of his power walk away? Jack explained that he didn't want to die in his office. He wanted to die on a beach or spend time with his family. He said, "I started as a teacher and I want to go back to being a teacher." He believed that the young generation at Alibaba was ready to lead, and it was time for him to let go. 8.2: The Farewell Concert. On September 10, 2019, his 55th birthday and the 20th anniversary of Alibaba, Jack Ma officially retired. The farewell ceremony was held in a massive stadium in Hangzhou. Jack appeared on stage dressed like a rock star, playing a guitar and singing. There were tears in his eyes as he thanked his team. He told them Alibaba was never about Jack Ma. It was about a dream that we all shared. This moment showed that despite his billions, Jack remained a human being who loved music, fun, and his friends. 8.3: A New Mission: Philanthropy and Education. Since his retirement, Jack Ma has focused his energy on the Jack Ma Foundation. He is no longer fighting eBay or Amazon. Instead, he's fighting poverty, climate change, and poor education. Rural teachers: he created an award to honor teachers in the poorest parts of China, often traveling to remote villages to meet them. African entrepreneurs: he launched the Africa's Business Heroes Prize to find and support the next generation of Jack Ma's in Africa. Global health: during the COVID-19 pandemic, his foundation donated millions of masks and medical supplies to over 150 countries, showing his commitment to being a global citizen. 8.4: The Legacy: More than just money. What is the true legacy of Jack Ma? It is not just the website, Alibaba.com, or the billions of dollars in profit. The power of small. He proved that small businesses can compete globally if they have the right tools. Culture over technology. He showed that a company's culture and its people are more important than its code or its machines. The gift of failure. He made failure cool. By sharing his stories of being rejected by KFC and Harvard, he gave hope to millions of students who felt they weren't good enough. 8.5: Final Thoughts: The IQ versus LQ. Jack Ma often speaks about three types of intelligence: IQ, EQ, and his favorite, LQ, the quotient of love. He believes that in the future, machines will have high IQ, but they will never have LQ. Only humans can have love, compassion, and values. His final message to the world is simple: if you want to be successful, have high EQ. If you want to keep your success, have high IQ. But if you want to be respected, have high LQ. Final summary: the lessons from Jack Ma's journey. Summary of the 8 chapters. As we conclude this long and inspiring journey, let's quickly revisit the major milestones of Jack Ma's life. The beginning. We saw a young boy in Hangzhou who taught himself English by giving free tours to foreigners for 9 years. The failures. We learned that failure is normal. Jack was rejected by Harvard 10 times and by KFC, but he never felt like a loser. The discovery. We traveled with him to Seattle in 1995, where he saw a computer for the first time and realized that China was missing from the internet. The dream. We entered that small apartment in 1999 where 18 friends started Alibaba with almost no money but a giant vision. The battle. We watched the crocodile in the Yangtze defeat the shark of the ocean, eBay, by understanding local culture. The success. We stood on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange as Alibaba made history with the world's biggest IPO. And finally, the legacy. And finally, we saw the teacher return to his roots, focusing on helping others through philanthropy and education. 2. 3 Golden Rules from Jack Ma. If you want to apply Jack Ma's wisdom to your own life in 2026, remember these 3 rules. Believe in your dream when nobody else does. When Jack talked about the internet in 1995, people called him a liar. He didn't care. He believed in the future. Focus on the small people. Alibaba's secret was helping small businesses, not big ones. If you help others succeed, you will succeed automatically. Get used to failure. Jack says, if you can't get used to failure, just like a boxer, if you can't get used to being hit, how can you win? 3. A message to the language learners. To all of you listening to this for English practice, remember that Jack Ma was an English teacher. He learned the language not just to pass an exam, but to talk to the world. He used English as a tool to open sesame, the door to his future. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just like Jack, keep speaking, keep trying, and keep learning. 4. Final conclusion. The story of Jack Ma is not just about money or technology. It is a story of hope. It proves that even if you are small, even if you are poor, and even if you fail 1,000 times, you can still change the world. Thank you for staying with me through all 8 chapters. Your journey of learning is just beginning. As Jack would say, never give up. Today is hard, tomorrow will be worse, but the day after tomorrow will be sunshine. Thank you for listening. Keep practicing every day. This is Jack. See you in the next episode. Goodbye.